Morning.
Morning.
How's that hair?
I'm doing it in a bit, but
Huh?
I'm gonna do it in a bit, but it's okay right now.
Oh,
It's weird because um, hold up. Let me move this. Okay. So it's 11 o'clock. So thank you everyone for joining us today for our GEL virtual series in October. Our series this month is Meet Tucson's BLM murals here. My name is Dan Sayapon, and I'm the director of GEL, which is Global Experiential Learning, which we integrate travel, multicultural education, and service learning to provide diverse and inclusive opportunities for students, all the students at the U of A. But of course, this semester and during this pandemic, we're not allowed or we can't travel. So we're going to have you travel virtually throughout Tucson and learn a little bit more outside the walls of the U of A, especially on this very important topic that we have. And I feel it's very important because we just gave another session yesterday about voting and the importance that this is going to connect with all of us getting out there to vote. Of course, I'm not the only one here at GEL, at Global Experiential Learning, but I have a team of amazing students that I want to introduce that have led this program as well. So I'll turn it to Crystal.
so hi everyone. My name is Cristal. Pronouns are she, her, hers, and ella. I am a first-year student in the Educational Leadership and Policy doctoral program, and I have been with GEL for about 3 years or so. So it's definitely been a really good opportunity. And I just wanted to give time to thank the BLM Muralists for being here.
Okay, hello, my name is Vanessa. I'm a senior here at the U of A. My majors are political science and public management and policy, and I am a GEL student intern since the summer.
Hi everyone, my name is Elena Puff. I'm a fourth year PhD student in the school psychology program. I am the graduate assistant for GEL. So we're really happy to have you all here today. During a time when our country is experiencing both social and political unrest, the Black Lives Matter movement has gained a newfound traction through various modalities in our society. I think one distinguishable expression is through art, or more specifically, community-based murals. With social justice a central component of GEL's mission, we're so excited to have you all here and to feature 3 Tucson muralists who have shared their work around amplifying voices of the Black Lives Matter movement. Join us as we learn more about their experiences, how they got here, and more specifically, how they use creative expression to advocate for equitable change in society. An important feature is that as we go through this presentation today, there should be a Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. Please feel free as questions come up and as we go through this dialogue, please drop questions in there and we'll be sure to do our best to answer all questions following the presentation.
Great. So we're going to go ahead and move forward. We did want to kind of do a little introduction of the muralists that we have here. So we have Camila Ibarra, we have Adia Jamil, and we have Robbie, also known as Rob, Lee Harris. So I'm going to go ahead and share a little bit. We're going to go ahead and start off with Camila. And we're actually going to go ahead and go through Camila's pieces. And we're going to ask a couple of questions as we go through it. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay. So starting off with Camila. So Camila, if you wanted to go ahead and kind of introduce yourself, a little bit about like where you were born and raised, and how you kind of like got into kind of doing like a little bit of your work.
Okay, so my name is Camila. I grew up in Tucson, Arizona, and I'm currently a college student and I'm going to ASU. But I just moved back to Tucson because Tucson has my heart. I love it here. And ASU is like fully online right now because of COVID. So I moved back to Tucson, and I'm trying to do like art as much as I can on my free time, just because it is a passion of mine and it is something that I'm planning to pursue full time later on, because my degree's in engineering, so it's hard to kind of like balance both of them right now, but I definitely want to do art later on. And just like how I got into art is in high school, I was really involved in student council, and they knew I was like kind of artistic, so I was always in charge of like posters and painting certain things, like just very basic level of art. And I realized like it was a skill that I kind of had, so I just started to pursue it and take it a lot more seriously and practiced every day since then. So it's been a journey, and I'm planning to build on it soon. Like, yeah, a lot more.
Thank you for sharing. So now we're gonna go ahead and go a little bit into your mural and a little bit of talking points that we would kind of like ask for you to talk about. It's kind of talking about like the mural, like explaining the significance of the mural, like why you created it, focusing on like the little details, right? Because there's different sections to it. So I'm kind of interested in that aspect. I'm kind of just seeing like why you created this mural and why do you think it's important for you?
Yeah, so am I still muted? Okay. So during the whole, like while everything was going on, the protests and everything, I really wanted to be active. I mean, this is a really important like movement for me, and just like, it's something that I want to support, you know? And I think everyone should be supporting it. But because of my work schedule, I was working over the summer as a server, and I just didn't have like, my schedule didn't align with, you know, going to the protests and supporting in that way. So I was like, well, I can do art. I can support with art in some sort of way. So I painted this mural on a little canvas on like, I think a Sunday night. And then I was like, wow, this is actually like kind of cool, you know? And so I reached out to Hotel Congress and asked them if I could just donate it to them as a large scale mural. And they were 100% cool with it. And I started it that same day that they approved it. So, and that was on Tuesday of the same week. So it was like a 2-day kind of process. And yeah, that's how I wanted to show my support, since I struggled to find other ways to do it. And I just thought that this would be like a huge like statement and just show my support physically for the community.
Thank you, Camila. So I wanted to talk about a little bit of points, kind of like focusing on the mural. So right here, as we can see that there's like the specific colors you use, or, you know, what's the symbol of the hands, right? Like what's the symbol of the mask? Can you explain a little bit about how all of this comes together throughout these times?
Right. So, I mean, this isn't the first time that we've like fought for equality for like Black lives. And so I wanted this mural to like firmly represent this year of fighting for it. And so that's what the mask represents, is like, even during the pandemic, we're going to fight for the rights and like be out here and really, you know, put our foot down and carry this movement. And so that's what the mask represents. And then the eyes was something like very piercing. I just wanted to represent like a very fierce woman who's ready to fight on and like really fight the battle. And the hair, obviously it's kind of like a code. I know a lot of people walk by it and don't even realize that it says Black Lives Matter, but I kind of like how subtle it is. And like because when you really look at it, people are like, whoa, like that's what it says. So I really like that aspect. And then the hands are like just the crowd in the back kind of supporting the woman in her fight, and just like knowing that she's not alone and that other people are there to support her and like fight on. So those are kind of all the key components of the mural.
Yeah, sounds good. So thank you for mentioning a little bit about the location, a little bit about the details. And I just want to thank you once again for being here with us. Was there anything that you specifically wanted to mention? Anything else on like your mural, or any details or the process or anything like that?
No, not necessarily. I think if anyone here is like, I guess, aspiring to paint a mural, I think it's just, I don't know, I guess take this opportunity as like, I guess a wake up, like you can just reach out to someone and hope. I mean, a lot of people will say yes. If you really want to put a picture on a wall, a lot of people will support it. And so if anyone wants to, I guess, pursue that, like you know, there are opportunities. So I just want people to know that, just because this was really cool for them to like give me the wall and just like let me do it. So yeah. And I just wanted to mention, it's so cool, Ravi and you know, all the muralists to be here together. It's like the first time I've seen, you know, like their faces, and yeah, but yeah, so cool. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So thank you for being here once again. And as you mentioned, like we did want to kind of gather a lot of BLM muralists. Unfortunately, it's not everybody in Tucson who has created a BLM muralist, but we are super fortunate and thankful to have you all here. So thank you once again.
Thank you.
So we will actually be moving forward with the Adia, sorry. And then I kind of just like wanted to pull up your mural again. It's definitely a bigger piece, right? So kind of asking like the same kind of background, like similar questions type of thing. What is it, Adia, that got you to create this mural? Can you please explain the significance about it? We see that it's a bigger piece, so there's a lot of significance in it, right? So we just kind of wanted to talk about your experience with it, what motivated you to do this, and many talking points. Maybe you have personal experiences, you know, things like that. So whatever you're comfortable with sharing, we would love to hear about it.
Right. So when I was talking with Joe, he said, you know, the theme was just going to be Black Lives Matter. At the time, he didn't know how many muralists there would be. And so I was trying to figure out how I could create something that would have an impact, but that would also be different, because I knew that there would be a lot of similar imagery in all of the pieces. So I wanted to make sure that it wasn't just the same stuff over and over again. And to me, we've been fighting this, Black people have been fighting this battle since we first were brought here. And the reality is that people generally don't seem to care what's going on with our community or to us until after it's too late, right? So after we've been murdered, after we've been harmed, that's when now people want to say, oh, this is important, right? So my goal was to talk about the fact that all these things are important before we're harmed. Our lives are important from the moment that we were conceived and through everything that we're doing. And so I just wanted to include a lot of different imagery that shows just the multifaceted ness, I guess, of Black lives, which means, you know, our lives matter when we're children. Our lives matter when we're scientists. Our lives matter when we're sleeping. Our lives matter when we're painting, when we're walking, when we're doing whatever we're doing. And our lives matter when we're not doing anything. Like if I'm just sitting at home and not really doing anything, my life matters. You know, I have family members who are incarcerated. Their lives matter. I have family members who, you know, struggle. Their lives matter. I have friends who are doctors and lawyers. Their lives all matter. And it's not just that they matter once we've been hurt. And so that's really what I wanted to focus on, is to remember that we need to be looking at all these aspects of the system in place that keeps allowing for these things to happen to us. And it starts way before a knock on the door in the case of like Breonna Taylor, right? It starts way before that. It starts in how schools function. It starts in how hospitals function. It starts everywhere. So we need to be looking at those aspects of why we are experiencing what we're experiencing.
Thank you so much for sharing, you know, your personal experiences. I know it's a little bit difficult to talk about it, but as you said, it's true. Like A lot of things, a lot of injustices have been happening, and it shouldn't be happening until something happens to an individual, right? So thank you for sharing that once again. And kind of moving forward, I know there's a lot of pieces within this piece, so I kind of wanted to see if you wanted to focus on specific sections. There's a lot of different meanings to it, right? So was there like specific, I don't want to say like sections again, but was there like specific points you wanted to talk about? I know it kind of says like alive, right? Like that's maybe just like one word, but it's a lot of significance towards it, you know, like a lady that's pregnant, all these different things. If you want to go ahead and just share with us more specifically.
Well, so one of the things that I wanted to do was focus on Black women and femmes. So that's why most of the figures, well, all of the figures are women, girls, or femme, or could be interpreted that way, because if you go back into any movement in the history of this country, there has been a Black woman behind it who started it, and they're always the ones who are overshadowed. So all of my work, not just this mural, but all of the work I do is always about focusing on Black women specifically, but women in general, sometimes when it's not just about Black women. And then I wanted it to be all inclusive, right? So I made sure to include trans lives, right? Because we ignore the murders of Black trans women, right? Because those are undesirable lives, but their lives still matter. It doesn't matter how you feel about a trans person, their life is still has significance. I wanted to include nods to our history and the fact that we've been doing this for a while. So on the bed that represents Breonna Taylor, there's a quilt, and the quilt represents the way enslaved people used to use quilts as codes to navigate the Underground Railroad. So I have quilt blocks that mimic those images that they would use. The pregnancy is about the high mortality rates among Black women. You know, I have had my own experiences where my life has been put in danger by healthcare professionals while I was, you know, in labor or pregnant. And then, you know, it's just, we do all these different things, right? We grow gardens. And for me, I personally find that growing gardens and learning herbalism and things like that, that's about reclaiming, right? Because Black people have a whole history of self-care, right? That involves herbalism, involves food, and involves how we treat one another. And we're seeing that resurgent right now, where Black people are falling in love with plants again. Black people are trying to garden and farm, right? Because we're trying to reclaim all these things that were stripped from us in these last 400 years. And so even though all these things still apply, this is about a struggle that we've been going through for a lot longer than just 2020.
Yeah, thank you so much. I know you mentioned earlier that you have the opportunity to kind of create this mural, and it's cool to see that like you were able to create your own mural, right? Maybe with some of your experiences, as you mentioned. So thank you for sharing that too. And I can't specifically remember, but if you wanted to share a little bit about like maybe where you were born and raised. Kind of, yeah, I'm sorry, I skipped that question.
That's okay. Right, I did not share that. So I am originally, well, I was born in Idaho, in Boise, Idaho, but I was raised mostly in the Bay Area of in California. And we moved around. We started in Oakland, and we just went around different cities in that area. And then I met my husband, and we moved here because he was from Arizona. We were living in Utah at the time, and we did not want to stay there. So we looked at California, we looked at Arizona, and we felt like Arizona was a better opportunity for a lot of reasons. And then eventually we moved to Tucson because my son was experiencing discrimination at school, and it was not a safe place for him. And so we found a new school down here, and we moved our family here in order for him to be able to be in a safe environment. And as far as like my art practice, as long as I can remember, I have always been creating. It's morphed over the years. You know, as a kid, it was drawing and coloring and painting. And then in college, I studied fiber art, which is what I primarily do. I do a lot of embroidery and weaving and screen printing and things like that. But I also did foundry and photography, and, you know, sculpture. I have a wide practice, I guess, but the primary practice is in the fiber arts.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing about your background. I apologize for skipping that question, but thank you.
No problem.
So we're gonna go ahead and move forward. Well, once again, thank you, Adia, but we're gonna go ahead and move forward with Robbie. And so Robbie, Robbie, I think you prefer Rob too. So can you talk a little bit about where you were born and raised, and how you kind of got into muralists, or kind of like getting into the artist's work for us, please?
All right, got to try and chop a long story short here. I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I moved to Anchorage, Alaska. Well, my mom moved us to Anchorage, Alaska when I was 2 or 3. And somewhere down the line, I think I was around 16 or something, she said we were moving to something called Arizona. And we ended up here a couple months later. And then I bounced back and forth between here and Alabama. I've been here for the last, I think, 12 years now. So this is the current parking spot that I'm at. Artistic wise, I've been drawing for, I think, around the age of 7. A good friend of mine named Chris Sagayo, I'll never forget him. He just sat me down and started showing me how to draw one day. And just every day I would go over to his house and we would just draw for hours on end. And then drawing evolved into messing around with clay and doing glass etching and everything. So anything I can put my hands on that I can try to make artistic, I've tried to dive into. So artistically, it's been a lifelong process, a lifelong growth, and it's just been fun the whole way.
Thank you so much for sharing. And I know you mentioned that you have like maybe a bigger story, so thank you for sharing in specific detail. But thank you for that again. We wanted to go ahead and talk a little bit about your mural. It's also in the central kind of downtown, right, location. And I wanted to ask if you can kind of talk about the significance about it. Like, why did you create it, right? There's these type of words: justice, love, peace, freedom, equality, liberty. Like, what do these mean to you, right? What does this mean to the community?
So
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
The reason I ended up doing the mural was my brother sent me a message, and Joe Pagic had put up a message on his Facebook saying that if there were any artists that wanted to do a mural around town, he had a couple locations secured. Weirdly enough, I don't have a Facebook, but my brother sent me the screenshot and he said that I really need to see you do something on this. And it was perfect timing because for me personally, emotionally, just seeing everything going on, seeing Breonna Taylor be murdered, that's the word I think is appropriate for that situation. She was not killed, she was murdered. But seeing so many people that look like me, that I fit the description of, I do so much of what these innocent people do on a day-to-day basis. Just walking out my front door, my life is threatened. I was so hurt and I wanted to do something. I wanted to say something. I wanted to express myself some way. So when seeing that message from Joe that he had the opportunity, I jumped on it immediately. I didn't have the idea for the mural yet. I just knew I wanted to do something. So I sent him a text. He got back to me almost immediately saying if I come up with a design, let him know. I started drawing one design that night. My daughter, my oldest daughter, who approves of everything that I do artistically, she didn't like the first one. So I scrapped it. And I sat there, and then in the middle of the night, the young lady blowing out the dandelion idea popped into my head. So I jumped up, sketched out a rough one really quick, and then got to the computer and started drawing it out. Sent the design to Joe. He sent me a text message back in all bold caps. I love it. And he said we can put it up immediately. And we ended up doing it really quick. The reason for the imagery was just something that I think a lot of us have done with the dandelion is making a wish. That simplicity of it, just blowing out a dandelion, that simple action, it's so innocent. There's usually no malice behind it. And just thinking of that, and then the words behind it were just, I wanted something that no one could in their right mind argue with, that everyone deserves, especially the injustice that Black people have seen for at least for me, forever now. And it's just that simple: justice, love, peace, freedom, equality, liberty. It's all we want. We don't want the violence. We don't want to tear down buildings. We don't want to have to march and protest and everything like that. We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it because we deserve these things. But I feel like the image itself was simplistic enough. A girl blowing out a dandelion, wishing with everything in her being that these things were real.
Yeah, thank you so much for mentioning that. I had actually seen this piece and I really didn't put it together with the dandelion. So thank you for mentioning that too. It definitely has a significance. I wanted to ask specifically, why is it that you use like those colors? I believe it's a tear coming down, right? So can you explain a little bit about that?
The color scheme, actually the young lady I just drew off the top of my head, and my brother messaged me. She actually looks a whole lot like my older sister. So and my older sister is one of my favorite people in my entire existence. I love that woman to death. So she subconsciously ended up kind of looking like her. The color scheme, purple just being my favorite color. That's why I threw that in there. But the young Black lady of multiple tones actually hit the effect that I wanted, because I didn't want her to just be seen as one dimensional or one color. So hence the awkward color scheme and not the traditional painting style of everything. And the for the background, I didn't want to do anything too elaborate. I wanted the painting itself to be simplistic, to where somebody that's just passing by, especially where it's at right there on the Rialto, there's a lot of cars traveling through. I wanted somebody to be able to look at that and get the message in a blink. And it was so cool seeing people just driving by, looking at it and just giving a subtle nod like, hey, that's cool, I approve of that. So I got that desired effect out of it.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I want to thank Camila, you know, for mentioning your experiences and creating this mural, and I want to thank Adia and Robbie for kind of going more in depth as how this has been a little personal for you all, a lot of personal, right, for you all, and explaining your experiences and unfortunately how like all these injustices are occurring at the moment. So thank you once again for sharing your stories and you know, experiences in creating this, and you know, like going more in depth. So thank you once again. So we're gonna go ahead and lead into a discussion. We would like to learn a little bit more of the murals, more of kind of like the personal touch to it. So I'm gonna go ahead and let Vanessa lead the discussion.
Thank you, Cristel. First, I'd like to say thank you to all the muralists who are here today. It's very hard to be vulnerable, right? So I want to thank you for your vulnerability and for sharing about you, because these murals like touched upon you and your backgrounds and all that stuff. So thank you for sharing from that personal perspective, right? So I very much enjoyed seeing the details of your murals and what inspired you. And if our participants like ever have the time, go to these murals. They're right in downtown. They're very centered in the middle of Tucson. And tag the artists, tag U of A Gel. We have an Instagram, U of A Gel. So so we can see that you guys actually went out to these locations, and now that you learned something more introspective in these murals, we want you to actually go out and see them. You know, there's a pandemic, but at the same time, be safe and like go out and learn and experience what you learned. So yeah, thank you very much. I'd like to lead us into a discussion, and if our participants have any questions specifically for one person or for everyone, leave them in the Q&A. So there's actually two questions right here. One from Dr. Meeks, which is, a friend of mine sent a card with this image on it. Do you sell these somewhere? I think Dr. Meeks is referring to Camila, because this was sent in at 11:09. So Camila, do you have any, do you sell these in the image of your mural anywhere?
So I was selling prints and I was selling t-shirts, and I was donating, and I donated like a great portion of it to the Black Lives Matter, like 2 organizations within the Black Lives Matter movement. And I do have some extras that I just have there in my trunk, but I'm planning on doing some more prints and giving the extra t-shirts. I only have like 10 extra t-shirts just to Hotel Congress. Probably by the end of like November, I'm gonna go give them to them so that they will be able to sell them from their like main desk area. I don't know if they're open right now. I think they are. But yeah, they'll be there, and they'll be pretty limited. But yeah, they'll be available by the end of November if you want to go pick them up there.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And we have another question specifically for Rob. What kind of work has he been doing since completing the Rialto mural? Anything in the realm of activist art or other murals in Tucson?
I have been waiting for approval on 2 possible murals, so fingers crossed on those. For the most part, I've been stuck at work, man. I'm an EMT by trade and a father, so I have my daughters at home, and trying to get them through school has been trial and error for the most part. New math is ridiculous. That's all I got to say about that. New math is got me wanting to hurt somebody, if I'm actually honest about it. I'm trying to learn this stuff myself, and for me, 2 + 2 will always be 4. There's no way around it. But I just been doing personal drawings for people. A couple wood burnings, wedding gifts. Christmas time is coming around, so I've been trying to knock those orders out. But for the most part, I've just been trying to live through a pandemic, which is tough on all of us.
All right, thank you, Robbie. We're having a couple more questions. There's a lot of questions, y'all, keep them coming. Do you feel a difference in making a mural versus a smaller piece? I think this question is more general. So do you feel a difference in making a mural versus a smaller piece, like emotional wise? And this is open to the 3 of you. So whoever wants to answer this question, you can just unmute yourself.
I guess I'll start. So I guess for me personally, there's a little bit of anxiety about it. It's, as an artist, there's always this apprehension of showing work, especially when it is personal, because you're not sure how it's going to be received. And then especially because like we know that saying Black Lives Matter for some reason is controversial. So I was worried about what that was going to look like as far as people passing by. And there was a couple of people who did have derogatory things to say while I was working on it, but mostly there was a lot of support. So that was very helpful. But for me, they're both very personal. When I work on my own work that's smaller and not a big mural, but there was just a different kind of anxiety because you can't miss a mural, right? It's big, and as you're painting it, people are seeing it, and they will voice their opinions whether or not they agree. So it made me nervous, but it was good.
Yeah, I agree with that. Because yeah, there were some people that expressed their opinions about my mural that they weren't happy with it. And because it is a controversial, and just like she said, like, I don't know why it is, but it is controversial. And yeah, I mean, it's just a lot more pressure to paint a large scale mural because people, you know, expect a certain thing. And yeah, it's just the pressure part, but I would say it is more emotional, I guess, to paint a large scale mural, just because you know that a lot of people are going to be seeing it, and you want to impact them in the best way possible. You know, you want to provide a mural that's going to speak to them. And yeah, there's just a lot more effort in putting a large scale mural, you know, as opposed to just like a smaller piece. But yeah, I think for me personally, it is more personal.
I have to say that Adia hit the nail right on the head, man. It's doing something that big. There's it's out there for everyone to see. It's every artist has our drawings and everything that we tuck away. That just like, oh, that's all right. We're just gonna put that to the side. But the controversial subject of Black Lives Matter, I've had plenty of people after I've painted, while I was painting, walk by and feel a certain type of way about it. And the best thing for the piece that I had put up, a gentleman came by and he was like, there is absolutely nothing wrong with this image. If somebody feels bad about any of these images that's up, there's something wrong with them. So that brought me a little bit of comfort knowing that I was on the positive side. And it's just so much emotion put into each stroke when you, especially on something with a subject matter like this, that you want to reach out to your community and your friends and your family and everything, and you want to make those bonds. So it was definitely way more emotional doing a big mural on this subject.
Thank you all for your answers. It's very emotional and very like it's very like emotionally, spiritually, maybe even like very personally draining. So I appreciate your vulnerability again. And there's another question here. It says, thank you for all your work. The murals are beautiful and powerful as you are. Is there anything specific you hope to see from the Tucson community in terms of activism, in terms of showing up to create change? And I'll open up this to all three of you.
Well, I guess I can start again. I just think that we're kind of in a weird space where culturally, not just here in Tucson, where people feel that they're being activists in ways that aren't actually being activists. So for instance, posting things on social media. There's a lot of this idea of getting the word out, right? I don't 100% believe in that, because the reality is that we have known that this was wrong, that racism is wrong since day one. The reality is that Black people have been saying that the way we've been treated in this country is wrong since day one. And so I think at this point, what we need to start seeing is people stop being afraid of like talking with their peers in ways about what actions they're going to take. Like, like a lot of people like to say, well, I talked to my mom or my dad or my whoever, right? And I try to have discussions that I think will teach people. But the reality is that if that person is going to change, it generally is years of work, right? So let's say you spend 5 years talking to your dad, and then finally one day something clicks, right? Now he's like, oh, I was wrong. And what can I do better? And the reality is that in 5 years, there's so much other work you could have done. You could have helped people register to vote. You could have made sure that people had access to polling places. You could have made sure that the school board has good people on it to make sure that all the schools are receiving a good education, right? And that it's racially equitable. And there's all these different ways that we can be doing things. And sometimes I think we get caught up in that it can only be voting or protesting. And that's not the reality. There's all this stuff that goes on in the day-to-day that needs to be handled. And if we don't handle those day-to-day things, and find out, like, we have to figure out what our space is, right? Not everybody is going to be on a political candidate, right? Not everybody's going to do that. Not everybody's going to be a protester. Not everybody is going to have the means to provide meals or food or whatever to people, but we all can find a way that we can actually do actions that create real change. And I think that we need to move away from just doing social activism where we're just posting things and talking about things online, and stop treating issues of race as brunch talk. That's why I always say, people talk about these things over brunch as if it's just talking points. And the reality is that this is my life, right? Like, I have to go out and interact with people who will do me harm. Like, when I'm looking at a restaurant, I look it up and I have to see what kind of imagery do they have? Do they have imagery that makes me feel unsafe? Or when I'm walking down the street or driving down the street, I see a Confederate flag, like, what is that person thinking? What are they going to do if they see me, right? And these are things that I have to deal with. So just talking about how racism is bad is not enough, but finding ways to actually create change is what we need to do. So from now on, I would appreciate it, and this is just me personally, if people would stop talking about how bad things are and start talking about what they're actually going to do. What they can do in their communities, in their circles, that is actually a real action that will actually, sorry, I'm saying actually a lot, that will really create change. And then that, I think we'll start to see the change that we need to see and locally and then nationally.
Adia, I love you, girl. Thank you. I appreciate you. To continue on what she said, our Black lives are not a hashtag, man. We are so much more, and I want to live in a time period where I no longer fit the description, man. I'm an EMT. I'm a father. I'm someone's son, and I can walk out the door and be killed by somebody that does not know me, all because of my birthright of having this skin tone. And if we can't live in a world where that isn't right, then where are we at? We've come way too far and have gotten nowhere. It's actually time to fix this. I feel like it's all of our jobs. Anyone that can see this, anyone that can see any one of our paintings or our murals up, it's our time to fix this. Point blank, period.
The only place I disagree on that is that I don't believe it's Black people's job to do anything. I think
no, you're right. You're right.
We have done enough, and we did not create this mess, and we have been fighting against this mess since day one. And so I, like, honestly, if Black people want to sit back and be like, well, it is what it is, I have no qualms with it. Like, yeah, we should be voting, we should be doing a lot of stuff, but we've been doing that. Like, we literally fought, and some people died so that we could. Like, we aren't the ones taking things for granted. So I don't think it's we that need to fix things. I think it's y'all that needs to fix things. And I think that's the hard part. I think a lot of people who are not Black think of it as a problem for Black people, to, like, racism is a Black problem, right? But no, it's not a problem it's not a Black problem. It's really a white supremacy problem. And really it's a anybody who's not Black problem, in the sense that there is colorism and racism within each ethnic group. So this really is going to fall on the majority to fix, right? Because Black people have been dying for this cause since day one, and it only ever changes when white people get involved. So that's what I think about that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think as far as like what I want to see is I do want to see more people that aren't Black supporting this. And that is something that I'm seeing grow like so much is after this mural, I've gone to some protests, and just the amount of like white people there and people that aren't Black supporting it and really just like strongly having these opinions, you know, fighting for equal rights for like Black people is like, it's so powerful. Like you guys aren't alone, you know? And so I think that's something, you know, that I just always want to see is like, it's not like Black people fight. It's like, we all need to fight for this, you know?
Yes, I totally agree, Camila. And there's so many good questions in here. I'm having a hard time to choose which one I want to ask. But there's one question here that's asking a general question. What backlash do you receive from those who might see murals as graffiti, quote unquote? I know there's a lot of controversy surrounding that area of art. So how do you respond in describing the difference?
Well, so I actually have a degree in fine art, and, you know, I took art history, and that really is just a classist and white Eurocentric opinion. So really, if you're going to start the discussion, that's where you have to start there, because the idea that it's not art because it's on a wall or because you weren't trained, or in the case of people who do create actual street art, like unsanctioned street art, you know, oh, because they did it without permission, that somehow it's not art. That's rooted in white supremacy. That's rooted in anti-Blackness, because there's a whole culture where that started from, right? And so what you're trying to say is that culture, and actually, if you really want to get down to it, doesn't make sense, because if you take art history class, the first thing we talk about are the caves in Spain, right? Which is what? Paintings on walls. So really, it's just about being anti-Black and and just pro-Eurocentric standards, right? There's certain things that we call classical art and certain things that we don't think is good art. And so it really needs to come down to opening up the discussion of what is of art history, right? Including more artists of color, including more countries than just Europe, right? Or not countries, continents, including more spaces than just Europe, and making sure that we actually discuss a real art history so that we can understand why murals are actually still art, even though I haven't actually received any backlash, but that's just what I have to say about that.
Thank you, Adia. Does anyone else have any other anything to add on until what one of our guest speakers just said? This question is amazing. It has a lot of, because people do see some things as graffiti, you know, and it's usually art. It's an expression. So I want to hear what y'all have to say, if you have anything to say.
Mine is real simple on this one. I did it and my daughters like it, so I don't care.
I'm on the same boat. I kind of, when I painted this, in my head, the back of my head was, someone's gonna vandalize this tonight, probably, you know? And I'm really shocked that nobody has. I mean, actually yesterday, someone glued a face mask to her eye or something, which is, you know, not that big of a deal. At least it wasn't like graffitied over, but you know, you do have to kind of put up with that. And I guess that's fine. You know, if someone graffitis over it, I'm gonna go and repaint it. You know, it's a mural that like is, you know, supporting the Black Lives Matter, and it deserves to be up on that wall. And if someone has an issue with it, then, you know, that's their problem.
Perfect, straight to the point. That's something that all artists should be brave enough to do, you know? So I have another question. This might be my last question. Sorry, I'm trying to read these. They're coming in so quickly. Do you know of any other Tucson artists using their art to bring awareness to the Black Lives Matter movement? Or any artists in general?
Well, I know there were several muralists for this particular project that Joe Pagic organized. So there's Renee Wolf. I don't know who else there were, because when you posted the pictures, I thought that there was some more murals. There's several. So I think that, and pretty much, all the Black artists in town. So a friend of mine and some of her colleagues and friends created the Black Harlem Renaissance, specifically to highlight and give opportunities to Black artists. And that's not specifically only to Black Lives Matter, but it is about making sure Black Lives Matter, right? Which is the real discussion. It's like, and I think that's the real issue, is that people think that Black Lives Matter is like a discussion, when really we're saying like our lives matter. We matter in art history, we matter in music, we matter in science, we matter in all these different places. So there may not be artists who are specifically talking about Black Lives Matter, but they are doing Black centric work, if that makes sense.
Yes, once again, got to follow off of what Adia said. Renee Wolf was on the project that Joe had put together. I know your local Black artist is not hard to find. We've had many murals put up, so their IG hashtags are on there. Go find them, go follow them, go message them. You'd be surprised how many of these artists do work out of the passion for it, just to get their name out. And me personally, I want to see more of it. I want to be able to connect more with it. This has been an awesome project for me, just for being able to connect with fellow artists and do things like this, and actually hear my fellow artists' points of view and everything. It's actually been a real blessing. And I know there's other artists out there starving to have the opportunity and the connections and everything. So seek them out, you'll find them.
Yeah, I agree, actually. So there are a lot of artists out there that don't really put themselves out there, but they're very, very talented artists. So, I mean, I think as long as you kind of know what work they do, you can always reach out to them, even if they aren't vocally, out there about, hey, I do commissions, I do projects, for the public. But you can personally reach out to them and say, hey, I like your work, can you paint something like this for me? And it's always appreciated, it's always appreciated. And, supporting local businesses as well, local artists is such an important thing too. So it's always great to go seek those from just local artists.
Thank you. I feel like I'm learning so much. And then we have one last question, I promise. So Camila, you said that murals are a way of expressing support for the BLM movement. How do you think these murals positively impact the community? And if y'all have any advice for people who want to do the same thing, like a similar kind of like resistance, like thing that they want to bring out into the community. That question can be for any one of you, but we can start with Camila.
I'm sorry, my dog started barking like crazy and I only got the first part of that. I'm so sorry.
You're fine. So you said earlier that muralists are a way to express support for the BLM movement. How do you think these murals positively impact community? And then a follow-up question was advice for people who want to do something similar.
Right, so as I was painting it, I got to physically see people's like the way they felt about the mural, and like when they would walk by, like what they actually thought about it just by the expression on their face, you know. And I could tell that it was really, really appreciated. And I know that some people told me, they're like, wow, you know, there's not a lot of Black art just on walls here, you know, like the Black community isn't really supported in Tucson. And for me, that was such an awakening. I was like, wow, that's so true, you know, like there isn't a lot of, like before the Black Lives Matter movement this year, there wasn't a lot of murals that supported the Black community. And so when I heard people expressing that, you know, they felt heard and they felt like we could see them, you know, and they were supported, that was a really powerful thing. And so, yeah, I mean, I think like I mentioned before, if you have art, or if you have something, a message that you want to spread, you know, you can always reach out to anyone. You can reach out to someone who has a house, you know, that has a blank wall, and be like, hey, I want to like paint this for you, you know. And if you have like a really good message, there's so many people that are open to that idea. And so if you have that, and if you want to do it, just like reach out to people and take that opportunity up.
I just wanted to add that I think that the impact of these murals, yes, I think it's good for a lot of people who view themselves as not being racist. But I think for the Black community, it makes us feel that much safer. And it was an interesting experience because Joe was saying how, you know, he had reached out to several people, and some people, I don't know who, right? So I can't tell you, they were struggling to find walls, right? Because they were scared because there had been vandalism. They were scared of backlash because people don't want to lose customers or whatever it is, right? And so he had to really dig to find the walls. And I think that speaks a lot to how Black people in the community already feel, right? Like we don't 100% feel supported, and we don't 100% feel safe, right? Unless we're surrounded by like all black faces, right? So when we can go to specific businesses and see this kind of art or stickers or posters or whatever, then that is kind of a signal that this is a safe place. And I think when you think especially about like sundown towns, right, where we know we're not safe, and if you ask any Black person who travels, they will check and say, is this place racist, right? Can I go here safely? And so when we have that around the city, that is kind of a signal that yes, this is a place where you're going to be safe. And it's not perfect, right? But we definitely can feel safer here.
For me, one of the coolest things about this project was that Joe did it. He gave us the opportunity, and for anybody in a position like that, to give somebody that opportunity is a life-changing experience, especially for a Black artist, because we don't get these opportunities all the time. And so what Joe created was magical. This was very special, and this was very personal. And I appreciated him just doing that out of the goodness of his heart. He didn't charge us. He didn't tell us we had to come bring our own supplies. He said, no, bring your will and your ability, and we're going to put this up. And for him to do that, that was what we need to see more of, opportunity. Someone with the platform to give somebody that hand up to go, hey, let's make this better. So if you are in that position to where you have a wall, to where you have the supplies, or you have the means, or you have the connections to give a young Black person the opportunity to better themselves, please step up. Step up and let them shine. They're going to do amazing stuff. There are amazing artists out there that just need an opportunity. That's it.
And I just wanted to piggyback on that. Exactly. So the thing that I really appreciated is that Joe was like, I didn't really know what I could do, but I knew I could do this. And that is exactly what I was saying. Like when you're having these conversations, when you're thinking about the actions that you can take, you need to look at what are you already doing in your life, right? What's your career? What are you studying, or what are you doing? Where do you work? Where do you live? And see where your skill set is. So he is a muralist who's known. He has this platform. He has followers. He has backers. He has people who will support him. And that was what he had available to him. And what we all have, well, what you all have available to you is going to be different, but you all have an opportunity to figure out ways that you can actually create change. So, like you said, creating this opportunity for Black muralists to do something for new Black muralists, right? Because this was my first mural. And it's something I'd wanted to do for a while, not specifically Black Lives Matter, but doing a mural is something I've always wanted to do. And this was the first time, and I'm 37, right? So in 37 years of me being an artist, this was the first time an opportunity was open to me. And, you know, you apply for art opportunities all the time and you hardly ever get them, but you get them even less when you're Black, right? And you apply for jobs and you get them even less when you're Black, and you apply for all these different things. So this was an excellent use of privilege. And that's really what we need to start seeing, is more people using their privileges in ways that will help people do the things that they want to do that they might not be able to do otherwise, simply because they're Black or brown or Asian or whatever.
Yes, thank you for that. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. This conversation is just very empowering just to even listen to. And just for like a little background knowledge for the participants, I can never say his last name, Pagek, something like that. I'm so sorry if I'm butchering it. He is like the owner of a murals, fine arts and fabrication business in Tucson, and his work is just plastered all around Tucson. So usually if you see something like on close to the university campus, like a very bright mural, like with like a lot of art, like natural themes to it, it might be Joe. So quick shout out to Joe and his amazing work. If y'all want to know more about him, if you want to know more about him, one of our panelists just put in a link for Joe's work, so y'all can see that. So thank you to all the muralists for coming today. We really, really appreciate you taking your time out of your day to join us. And thank you to those who asked a bunch of amazing questions. That was very inspiring. So right here, we have a muralist contact information for Camila, for Rob, and for Adia. Their Instagrams are right there. Their Instagram handles, Camila Cavis, Blame It on Rob, and Adia Jamil. And what else do we have here? So you guys can follow them on Instagram. And can we go to the post-assessment link, please? Thank you. So to get credit for this lecture or for this presentation, you guys can take out your phones and open up the link on the barcode, and please take our post-assessment quiz kind of thing. It's so you can have participation points and it'll count towards your attendance. Does anyone have any other questions? Anything they want to wrap up with? A little concluding, if anyone has any lingering thoughts, the floor is open. And also the Twitter, Instagram, our Facebook, our website, Dan's email. Dan is our coordinator, our director of GEL. So if you have any questions about GEL in general, you can go ahead and email him. But yeah, if you have any more, if anyone has any questions or if they want to say a last statement, we can finish off.
So I kind of want to add, I wasn't sure if anybody else was. I wanted to kind of add a little bit and kind of mentioning that the post-assessment is super helpful for us. As Vanessa mentioned, you know, this is a little bit like on how we can improve. Also mentioning that we are getting our funding from the student services fee. So with that, we're able to improve and see how we're able to kind of, you know, use that funding towards our community, right? So I did want to thank you once again to Rob, to Camila and Adia for spending time with us on a Wednesday and, you know, sharing your experiences. It's really, I truly appreciate you all being so vulnerable today and spending time out of your busy lives with us today. So thank you once again for that. I do also want to mention that next month we will be having something similar to this. It's going to be kind of a food tour around Tucson. And that's going to be on November 18th. We're still kind of looking into the times, but if y'all are interested in looking into a food tour, kind of similar to this, but in a food type of topic, we will be having that too. So thank you once again to all our muralists for being so vulnerable and sharing your experiences with us today.
Yeah, and I want to say on behalf of GEL, thank you so much for joining us on this conversation. These are pieces that aren't always talked about on the U of A campus, and we hope that our students go out in the community, in the Tucson community, and see what's out there and see the impact that not only others can make, but they can make as well. So kind of piggybacking on what we had earlier, all these muralists have made a tremendous impact on the Tucson community, and you can make an impact too by voting in less than a week on next Tuesday. So make that change by going out there to the ballots and voting. Please, please, please. We also have our last session for our October series tomorrow. It's a look into Mexico's border issues, where we're going to talk to the Mexican consulate of Tucson, as well as talk and hear about the voices of students that had to move back to Mexico and continue their education, as well as some of the professors that will be working with them. So thank you again for joining us in this conversation, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us, you guys. We appreciate it.